it swells my heart to hear what you just said, because traffickers have to devalue their victims in order to keep them down.
I love your name, Aros. Where did that come from?
Aros was a Greek name. Aros is the Greek god of love. And my name is spelled Aros, which was the original Greek version.
Okay.
And then the Romans changed it to Eros, and that's also Cupid. And so it's the Aros is pre-Roman Greek.
Okay.
And my great-grandfather had the middle name Artemis given to him. And that has been passed down. My father just wanted to have a Greek first name that went with it.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's been fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not Greek. Just the name is.
Awesome. Well, I like it. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know you've got quite an awesome background and in all that you've done, and maybe we can just kind of start. Tell us about who you are, and then we'll kind of go through and ask you questions along the way, if you don't mind. Because this is my first time meeting you in person. Yep. I know a little bit about you, but we are super excited to have you on today, because you're right. Everything you do and stand for is right in alignment with what our podcast is about. And I know you got a lot of cool stuff to share with us today.
Yeah, you bet.
So, yeah.
So my name is Aros Mackey, and in social media, I've been known as Aros Artemis, and I'm known around the world, much more famous around the world than I am here at home, and that's been by design. I've not wanted people here to really know who I am because of the nature of my work and what I do. And so it's been really strange for me to change all my social media and add my last name and stuff, because I am a candidate for city council here in St. George now. And so I had to make changes and let people know who I am that way. So it's, but it's happened, and I'm on the run. And
how's that transition been so far?
It's actually been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still do all my other work, but I went from confronting traffickers and asking them things like, why do you illegally have a runaway in your presence right now? Mm-hmm. And then tightening the screws down on the conversations, and they want to just get away. And now it's like, what's your platform?
Yeah.
Yep. What are you running on? And
right.
They're opponents, but they're friends and they're good people. And so it has been kind of fun. Even some of the opposition that I've gotten online, it's not dangerous.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
Not life threatening.
Yeah. It's not.
Yeah.
No. And I'm like, well, it's kind of fun to have, more of an intellectual dialect, opposition in that kind of a direction. And so in many ways, it's actually been kind of healing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because my missions get really heavy and dark. It's like almost always so dark. And even last night, a dad that I helped him find his daughter under a bridge a few years ago, he's got a friend that now has a missing daughter, and he's been messaging me, and like he's giving me updates, which are good. That's a good part. But he's like, I know what that dad is feeling and thinking. Yeah. I don't want him to feel like that, and I know that you and I can help him.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't know if my heart can take another mission at this moment.
Yeah.
Because I'm planning some other international missions right now that are heavy and so that's the nature of what I have to do. And so with politics, it's actually kind of fun to just not have to hide my identity. I can tell people who I am, what I stand for, and why I'm running, and actually try to make friends with these people. Like, this is me, and so that's been kind of healing on that side.
So what is your current? I mean, do you own a business or?
Yes.
Okay, so what would you say your title is? Like, what do you do? What do you operate as?
I'm actually a counter-human trafficking operator first.
Okay.
And then to fund my missions, my business is a private security agency.
Okay.
I'm one of the premier vendors for large international executive protection groups. So if a large business, Walmart or any of the Lowe's or Home Depots or anybody has a termination and the person threatens the life of the employees or the manager, they usually call into some of these larger international organizations to have executive protection brought in.
Yeah.
And then they contact me, and then I have 50 employees throughout the state, and then we deploy. Most of the time I try to do it. And if I'm on city council, then I'll just be having my employees go do it more.
Yeah.
And so the executive protection funds my missions. Because I've been covert, I don't do very well at bringing in donations like some of the other notable organizations out there.
Yeah. It's got to be a little tricky to do that, I would think. Stay covert and be able to...
Yeah, I think this is a smart way you've done it, is build a business around something similar in the same industry. I think vertical integration. Using those profits to fund something that seems like you're passionate about. Yeah. How did you end up doing that?
I started out academically, actually. In my undergrad at BYU, Idaho, I ended up taking a course in social issues. And we studied terrorism one week and then human trafficking another. And I knew that my focus needed to be in those two disciplines, the future of my academics. And I ended up in a master's degree in intelligence, and then a PhD. My PhD work is in criminal justice.
Okay.
And the name of my business is Adaptive Ops. And how that came about was in the intel world, you have operations, and op is what people call them. An operation is a larger umbrella focus, and then you have missions that go in to accomplish the operation. A missing person is an operation. So it'd be Operation Jane. And then I'll do multiple missions in order to locate her, create the extrication plan, and help the family get reunited. And the traffickers here in the United States are incredibly intelligent. They're cowards, and I'll publicly say it all day. They're very cowardly, but they're pretty smart when it comes to their personal privacy rights.
Yeah, and cowards can still be cunning.
They're very
usually
cunning.
Those people that take advantage of victims, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's why you don't see human trafficking convictions. Most prosecutors struggle at knowing how to make that happen. It needs to be a concerted effort between the prosecutors, law enforcement, public defenders, because they're all their bosses are the city council and mayor and the chief of police as well. Is the boss is the city council and mayors. They need to be creative. Law enforcement have to have some leeway to get creative, to get the evidence, and how that works. Information leads to intelligence. So as information starts clumping together, it becomes intelligence. Then intelligence eventually becomes evidence. And our law enforcement need to be empowered to be able to collect that evidence so that our prosecutors can actually lock down the convictions. There's prosecutions. People brag in the industry about prosecutions all the time, but they don't result in convictions hardly ever at all. And so they'll roll them over to like drug convictions and things like that because they know how to do it. Their jobs are just like our jobs. You want to have productivity.
So let me ask you this. When they started fighting the drug war, however many years ago that was now, 30 or 40 years ago, were there similar issues in the legal system at that point because people hadn't prosecuted drug crimes? Now they're really good at it after 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
You see that kind of same thing happening?
Yeah, and seeing you're catching on exactly. Yeah. Like that's the concept is they were motivated by their bosses to get creative in that direction.
Yeah.
And they have been.
Okay.
And now, after so many drug convictions, the vice guys or the narco guys, the officers that are working this area, they'll tell you these drug traffickers are adapting.
Yeah.
They know how to not get arrested, and they get really tricky. And so our narco guys are really creative at getting those convictions. We need to inspire our human trafficking investigators to be able to be creative and give them the leeway. It might take them longer, but we need to be okay with that because, they can't feel like they're going to get in trouble if they're not producing some results.
Yeah.
Would they have to be allowed to get creative? Yeah. And they can.
Reminds me of that movie American Gangster with Denzel Washington. Have you ever seen it?
I'm not sure I had.
It's really good. And he was actually, Denzel in that movie was trafficking, really I think ended up being for the CIA, moving crack into Harlem and stuff like that. And I'm trying to think of his real name. But anyway, the prosecutor was Russell Crowe in that, or the detective was Russell Crowe.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to go watch that.
Yeah, it was really good. He had a hard time trying to get support of all these people. And, it's kind of an interesting story. But it seems like what you're saying right now is kind of a similar thing that happened in that movie is happening with human trafficking. Another question, you mentioned, you said Jane, you said her. Is the majority of this happening to females? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, definitely. Boys get trafficked as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, it gets really dark and weird, but men also.
Yeah.
Grown men.
Grown men.
Yeah.
I don't know how to really say this without really, blowing people's minds, but I know a man that is a predator in Las Vegas that would be attracted to overweight, big, ugly, redhead men dressed up as women.
Whoa.
And if there was a trafficker out there that knew that this guy was a customer, he would go find a way to exploit a big, ugly, redhead man dressed as a woman and sell that person to this customer.
Wow. It's crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Where's your jurisdiction? Are you kind of all over? Or are you more local? What do you? You said worldwide missions you've got going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I operate like a volunteer, out there, and so I can work anywhere on that kind of a premise. I'm not contracting like for money, and so my licensing doesn't limit me when I'm a volunteer like that.
Yeah.
And so just putting in a nutshell, wrapping up what I was saying, how advanced and complicated and adaptive the traffickers are, I have to adapt to.
Yeah.
So that's where adaptive operations,
Yep. Okay.
that's where
it's awesome.
And you're not limited by any agency. You do what you got to do.
How did you go from the intellectual part, learning about this in the books, and then actually becoming an operator, so to speak? Where did that transition happen?
Excellent question. Wow. Yeah. So I was going to be in DC helping. I used to be a political scientist. My undergrad was in political science, organizational communications, and public relations. And just to give you a sense of how my mind works, at BYU, Idaho, I went through and started dissecting the courses that I wanted. I was looking through all disciplines. I want this course, this one. And I discovered that there were 3 different disciplines that used almost all of the same classes. And with 2 extra semesters, I could fulfill all the requirements for 3 disciplines. So I went ahead and just started it. And then at 70 credits, I went and talked to the administration and said, with 2 extra semesters, I'm going to fulfill all the requirements for organizational communications, public relations, and criminal justice, and political science. What are you going to do? Are you going to give me 3 degrees? Let me graduate with 3 degrees? Yeah. And they said no. They said I would have to start over on each of those and retake the classes.
Yeah, there's too much money, and
it was a money
do it all at once.
Yeah, right.
Come on now.
But to their credit, they created a new curriculum for a new discipline for me and gave me 3 clusters.
Okay.
And so that's why I said my undergrad was in political science, organizational communications, and public relations.
Okay.
So that kind of thinking is where all this came from. Okay. In my master's degree in intelligence, I was one of the few civilians in that curriculum. All my peers were intel analysts all over the world, and my focus was on political science back then. And I was going to go to DC, work for a congressman or a senator, and find a way and fight to make it so our counterterrorism practitioners could be more safe and more efficient legislatively, whether it's creating new legislation or removing it. That was what I was going to do. That was going to be my mission. And the more I studied foreign terrorist organizations, whether it was South, Central Asia, in the Middle East, or even Mexico, then I kept coming back to human trafficking. Human trafficking kept coming up. And I was seeing that foreign terrorist organizations were using human trafficking victims as like currency. Yeah. It wasn't like a direct money trade-off. Excuse me, but it was more of a reward for their generals.
Wow.
And people were, and it was straight up human trafficking, and these victims were being raped, and it was sex trafficking, labor trafficking, it was all of it together. And just kept coming back to it. And I started realizing that our counterterrorism practitioners are amazing. And there's a lot of them. Every police department has counterterrorism experts, every agency, all the way up to the top of the government and even down to the lowest. And they're so good. Even in Las Vegas, they're kicking in doors likely on a monthly basis, stopping terrorist attacks. They're that good. So there's not very many terrorists compared to the amount of people countering it. There are absolutely terrorists that want to kill us. But we have a lot of people stopping it. Human trafficking is opposite. Human trafficking is growing like this. Those of us who are actually countering human trafficking, we're growing like this. We're being outpaced. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do if I transition to human trafficking? I'm not going to need to be in DC. I do want to keep my family where we're at in St. George. And so I started transitioning more to criminal justice, and I thought, how am I going to use an intelligence master's degree and stay in Utah? And so I started investigating things like becoming a private investigator, doing bail enforcement, because I never felt like I was supposed to join an agency anywhere. I've gone through trainings and made good friends in agencies, but I've always felt like I was supposed to be private. And then I found my own inroads. And one thing I learned about the criminal justice process is there's a lot of gaps. And the bad guys are exploiting the gaps. There's only certain things that law enforcement can do. We need law enforcement to stay within the realm of the Constitution. And they're beholden to by it. And it's a good and a bad thing because the traffickers understand that as well.
Is part of your mission, would you say that the trafficking criminals are going like this, and the people that are combating it are barely growing? Is part of your mission to help get the recruitment of that type of that movement up? Is there something all of us can be doing to assist with that that we could do more of?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a matter of being understanding the right kind of awareness. There's this huge awareness right now going on because of the Sound of Freedom movie that came out. Unfortunately, as an in the field operator, I don't think it's helpful.
Okay.
It's possibly harmful for what I'm trying to do, because I've seen my organization plummet with the donation. I didn't get much anyway, like $500 to $700 a month is all my nonprofit gets anyway, because I'm so covert. But I saw the people are donating to something that they can't do anything about other than create attention, and it's creating this whirlwind that nobody knows what to do.
No solutions are being
Let me ask you this. I think in this whole human trafficking, and just tell me if I'm wrong, but this is my perspective, my opinion, is that it seems like, especially the last 10, 15 years in America, there's so much liberal ideology that has caused all these problems, mental illnesses. We see gender dysmorphia, or I don't know what you want to call it, confusion, the breakdown of the family structure, the demasculination of men, all of these problems, single mothers raising young boys who go out and commit crimes, all these problems that we're seeing happening in our country today. I feel like if we could get back to these solid, fundamental core values of families, good community, strong men protecting families, these kind of things, that those would solve a lot of these problems in our country. And if I understand correctly, America's the biggest consumer of a lot of this issue, right?
Yeah.
So am I right in assuming that if we can get down to those things and fix these problems, that a lot of the issues are going to go away simply because there's not as big of a market available for these issues?
Definitely. And with that's part of the message I wanted to bring to your audience today. And I don't want to end off on trashing on Sound of Freedom, because it rolls into this. What needs to happen. So all your listeners that have watched the show, they feel heartsick, they don't know what to do. Don't turn to violence, whatever you do. There are men I've talked to that are like, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm going to go kick in doors. I'm going to head to the border.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't take that kind of a mindset, because that's what the traffickers want. That's what the bad guys actually want. The Gadiantons out there, they want that. What you can do, coming from somebody in the field, look to your family, look to your neighbors, your friends. If there is a man that's close to you that has recently lost their job, has gone through a divorce, gone through something tragic that will beat his self-value down, his self-worth, you need to lift that man. Because every man, woman, at some point has a moment in their time where, and it happens often, where you have to make a choice. Are you a predator or a protector?
Yeah.
The value in self-worth is where these men choose to become predators.
Yeah.
We are the largest consumer of child sex trafficking and pornography in the world. The United States is.
Yeah.
We need to be shoring up our men. We need to be inspiring them to become more solid.
Yes.
And to choose to become protectors. Why would you become solid?
Yeah.
To be a protector.
Yeah.
That's what you need to be. Make your body strong, your mind strong, your spirit strong.
Yeah.
And for what? To be a protector.
Yeah, and the way that's going to happen is strong men in the household. It reminds me of that scene in American Sniper, I think it is, where his son gets in a fight and he talks to his son about being a sheepdog, right, and protecting those people around him. And I think that's like a big catalyst in Chris Kyle's story. Am I right? That's the right movie, isn't it? American Sniper?
I don't remember.
With that, there's really another really important part to kind of answer your last question too. With sheepdog, like we need to be protectors of the flock, because the predators out there don't care what color the sheep's clothing is,
right?
Whether it's a white sheep, black sheep, or a rainbow sheep,
right?
We have to be aware as sheepdogs on where the predators' inroads are.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the rainbow colored sheep, the predators know they have easy inroads. Of course. And it's not the fault of the rainbow community. Yeah. It's that the predators just know how to exploit that. Yeah. And so we need to look out for that. I've gotten boys out of human trafficking that were caught up in this homosexual human trafficking group. One was in Portland, one was in Austin, and another was out in Miami. Yeah. Like, they need help too. And they're vulnerable, especially these boys that get kicked out of their houses, when they're, I don't know what the right answer is for that family with those kind of things, but we as protectors need to recognize that anybody on the street is vulnerable. Boys, men, children. I work in the streets a lot, and I'll show you guys some things, some techniques, some things, because maybe one of your listeners will be that person that starts doing what I'm doing, and doing it in the right way. I don't encourage it. It has to be a calling. Yeah, it's incredibly dangerous, and you got to be willing to have that conversation with your family, because you might not come back from the missions. There's been so many where I've had to have that conversation with my children. You know, they're scared. They knew the danger I was going to be heading into, and they accepted the fact of the faith over fear. And I always come back, thankfully. I mean, it's blessings that way. So I don't take it lightly to show you some of my techniques and things, but I'm hoping we can start inspiring people to rise higher, because I think we need to. I think we are coming to a point in society where we're going to be backed into a corner, and there's going to be good men, protectors, that just won't know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think maybe what holds some men back is I think, well, I was never trained in the military, or I was never trained in law enforcement. What good am I? Yeah. Maybe. Would you agree? They don't have to be.
Or I'm just doing my job. Yeah. Right? Like, I think a big problem are men that just, I'm just doing my job. Well, that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And it doesn't make you a man to just do your job. It makes you a man to do the right thing and be a protector. I look at all this stuff happening right now, like they're reinstating mask mandates and all this stupid stuff happening. And then people just do it. Like, oh, well, I need to keep my job. Well, how about you be a man and step up and do the right thing, not the thing that's comfortable or easy or just because that's what you were told to do, right? But I think those are hard things to do as men, is like, am I doing the right thing? And
I think they're hard when we lose our values, right? If we keep our values where they should be, it's not hard. But we live in the world, and sometimes we're human, and we do forget those values from time to time. Maybe that's possible, right?
Yeah, I posted a thing today actually of a guy talking about the people that don't like you are people that don't agree with your values if you're a man that lives in integrity. So if you live in integrity, you feel a certain way, you are a certain way, but then you act a certain way, you live in integrity. And if you're acting based on your values, which I think good people that live in integrity do, then the people that don't operate with your same values are naturally not going to like you.
It exposes them.
And you have to accept the fact that if you're a good man that lives with good values and you have integrity, that the people you're going to attract are the people that have those same values. You're never going to attract, someone's never going to like you that doesn't have the same values. And the only way that people are actually going to change theirs is to be attracted to your life, right? And start going, oh, maybe their life is the life I want to live, And that's why I went back to that family thing, Aros, when you're talking about this big issue. Is I look around, I was raised in a single parent household. My mom was a single mom, and I think about all my brothers and sisters and the challenging lives they've had, and I just made a different decision than them. That's it. But it was all perspective. However, I look at, like Brandon, your life and a lot of other families that have great family structures. Parents are both there. They're making good choices. They're raising great children. And then you watch the odds of the children living good lives and making good decisions is so much higher than the opposite. It's not that it can't be done, because there's exceptions to everything, right? Mm-hmm. But if we put the odds in our favor, I lived in Vegas for 10 years, and I used to tell people in business, just put the odds in your favor. If you, like casinos, if you learn to count cards, they kick you out of the casino. Why? Because now you've learned to put the odds in your favor, and they don't like it. And so in life, I think if we can put the odds in our favor of winning any battle in any mission, right? And I think in this day and age, I think putting the odds in our favor on this subject is really what we stand for as a podcast. Amen. Building solid lives, man, being solid men and solid women, solid mothers, solid fathers, raising solid children. And to me, it seems like the obvious answer, but I know it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
There's complicated factors, but it is easy.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Yeah.
And you focus on the values.
Simple, not easy, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It is simple, but but to defend your values is difficult. And I have come to terms, and summing up all of my work, everything I've done in the last decade in the field, it swells my heart to hear what you just said, because traffickers have to devalue their victims in order to keep them down. When we get a girl away from a trafficker, the first thing we do is start building her value back up.
Right.
And if the girl's value or the boy's self-worth, if they know that they are a son or daughter of an all-powerful God in heaven, they tend to not be very good victims.
Amen.
The trafficker needs to beat them down, and they do. Yeah. They will lay the smack down, and they will put this invisible leash on them, and they'll use drugs to help get their value down. Then they'll let them know your family will never want you again, what you've done. Mm-hmm. The world doesn't want you. I've gotten girls away, and we had the whole world to give her. Yeah. But she wouldn't accept it because her value, she didn't
self-worth
feel like.
So what do you do? What are some things you do to help them realize their value once again?
You have to you got to understand what the traffickers do. They sell a story. They get these traps that they lay out and that are typically hidden in promiscuity. And they draw the senses. And then they get them, and then they start building a story. They start building value around the promiscuity. And then when they have that leash locked into place, that's where the smackdown comes. They beat them down and create this trauma. And then they turn around and rebuild them back up. I'm sorry, baby. That wasn't me. I didn't mean to do that. We're going to have a house one day. He starts building her back up, drops $500 on her hair, bring the smack down again. When this happens enough times, it creates a trauma bond that this girl is so broken that she only understands how to predict the smackdown and the what she perceives as a blessing after with getting rewarded. And it's an operant conditioning is what's happening. And so we have to do the same thing with building them up and then having reward and love continuously after. Yeah. Build them up again, same thing. Because they'll be expecting the smackdown. You have to break that.
Yeah, it seems to me what you're just saying. I mean, we've talked a lot in the past about dopamine, right? Doing hard things, and we talked about this in the hunt we just did. And it's like you do these hard things. It's super hard, and your dopamine really is in the super low because you're doing something so hard, and then you get this reward at the end, and it creates this incredible high. Yeah. And I think So it sounds like something very similar, right? They're learning how to use the natural dopamine response in a human in a negative way, which I would call Satan.
Yeah.
And if we can learn to use it in a positive way, is that what you're saying? Is you're just reframing the perspective into a positive dopamine high for this person? Is they're getting natural rewards?
And that's an easy way to explain it. The aftercare is the hardest part.
Of course.
It's so hard. And, so I don't want to pretend that it's like, oh, we just do this. It's almost impossible. They need Christ to truly heal them.
Yeah.
We can only do more to try to prevent, and even the rescue is inefficient. My part of it, getting girls out, is so hard, and it's costly.
Yeah.
It's not very efficient. The most efficient thing that it can do is what you guys are doing right now, and helping people understand where their value is. Yeah. And then we cut it off before it actually happens, catch them before they get in the whirlpool. And, if somebody thinks that they're going to come into this industry, they'll learn some of the things that I'm going to show you guys. If they think they're going to go out, kick in a door, eliminate the oppressor of a victim and free them, and that victim is going to run to them, it doesn't happen like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The victim will love their oppressor, their trafficker, many times like a child can love an abusive father. Mm-hmm. And they'll be completely disappointed in what it's like. They might be a part of a rescue, and then they'll get home and they'll be like, I am heartsick. I am destroyed internally. My spirit is broken. Where's the glory? It's probably very similar to guys that desire to go to war, and then they come back and they'll tell this story. The only person that wants to go to war is somebody who's never been there.
Yeah.
It's the same with this.
Yeah.
Why would you want to be a part of a car crash where bodies are torn apart and mangled, and you're helping people save lives there?
Right.
It's kind of similar, and telling my story is hard, especially in the U.S., because the timing of it. I have over 100 people that I've gotten out of very difficult situations. Most of the cases I take are cold cases. They're the hardest ones.
Yeah.
And these people know it, and the families understand that. They're following me on social media. Mm-hmm. They're making comments on my things. I can't. If I share something about what happened with them, it brings back a trauma.
Yeah.
A remembrance that they just want to forget. And so even the girls themselves are there, and they're commenting, and they're doing things. And so if I were to shift it and start trying to make myself look like a hero to bring money in, it wouldn't be right. I can't do that. So my messaging out there has been more of the training and educating people, but people don't want that. They only want to spend money on stuff that they see, like glorified movies and things like that. Yeah. And it's like, but those of us who are truly doing what can be done, it's not very helpful.
Yeah.
So with that, with Solid, what you guys are doing is truly amazing, coming from somebody in the field. It really is cool.
Thank you.
I want to go into a little bit more on how I started doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Just in case there's listeners out there that do feel that call.
Yeah.
And start learning it.
Sure.
The first thing I'd say is this is not a new thing. It's been a long time. I started in 2009 studying this and finding my own inroads. Mm-hmm. So anything that I say or do, I am not liable for people trying and doing. You're on your own if you.
There's your disclaimer.
Your own. That's my disclaimer for sure. Aros said, "This is what you do."
We've got a waiver. We'll email all you. You got to sign it.
But So some of the tricks of the trade I'm going to share because I want your listeners to start breaking out of the box, have outside the box thinking.
Yeah.
You might watch a movie and think, oh, that was really cool. But, you know, like what you said, oh, I wasn't in the military, or I wasn't a police officer, or I was never trained in that.
I can't shoot like John Wick.
But you can develop those skill sets.
Yeah.
And why not? Why not learn how to do things that the movie spies in movies would do? And when I started experimenting and developing my own training, I kind of felt a little ridiculous at first. But after I developed skill sets, opportunities came up where I actually used it.
Yeah.
And I started realizing, okay, if you never develop a skill set, you will never be close enough to the situation to actually experience it.
Or you don't even realize that you can use that skill set at any given moment because you don't have the awareness that a skill set was needed at the time.
That's right.
It's like sales, dude. It's like how many times you learn how to overcome an objection and ask the right question, but people don't know. And then they end up, we used to talk about alternative choice in sales. You know, like you have this issue with your wife all the time, like, where do you want to go eat? She's like, I don't know. Where do you want to go eat? But if you ask her, you know, you get good at asking, like, you know, these two places you want to go. Hey, you want to go eat here? You want to go eat here? And she asks. Or with your kids, you know, you take them to a candy, you know, you take them to a store and they want a candy bar or something like that. And you put them in front of the whole aisle and you go, hey, which one do you want? There's 100 choices. They start crying because they can't make a choice, right? You pick up two and go, which one do you want? And they can pick out of two choices really easy, right? But it's knowing that skill set of alternative choice.
It's an absolute skill set.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to not. Why not develop it? And based on what I project is happening in the world, it may be advantageous. You may actually save your own life or save other people's lives by these kind of skill sets.
I lived in Vegas for a lot of years, and I have a good friend who's in law enforcement, and he would constantly be talking about it. But there's also a documentary on. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe I'll figure out the name. It's an interesting thing. I don't think people realize how, you know, because there's tunnels below Vegas all the way. I think there's a movie. I don't know all the movie references today. It's funny. Ocean's 11, I think, where they rob the Bellagio and get away. Yeah. You know, I mean, there really is tunnels below that whole city because of that.
Yeah, there's some documentaries out there. I think one of them is Mole People. And I do have friends down in the tunnels. Unfortunately, just recently, one of my friends had died down there. He had actually gotten washed out in a flash flood.
Dang.
It's really sad because he has been a protector down there for a long time, and that's how I found him. Is I knew that there was a guy down there that was providing a safe place to sleep for those who are vulnerable down there.
Wow.
And so, but yeah, we've been friends for a long time.
What a big job, you know, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. We gotta continue to get better, right, and apply these things.
I would just want your audience to not be afraid to try new things and to learn skill sets. Yeah. You know, and build that self-worth. Yeah. You know, why not? Who cares? Who cares what the world thinks if you're developing something that somebody might laugh at? Yeah. Who cares? Just
I was talking to my boys the other day. I said, all right, boys, your life's either going to get better or worse depending on every decision you make. Yep. So, because you know, my youngest, he's pretty good at like eating. He even works out and stuff. Dodger, he's my youngest, and then Bridger, he's playing football and stuff, but he tends to like the treats a lot more, right? So we were just having a discussion. All right, boys. If you eat that donut over there, is it going to make you stronger or weaker, right? Weaker. Okay, so you probably shouldn't eat it unless you've eaten some good protein and good food first, then you can have a little bit of a donut, right? You know, but that's, if all of us would live by that principle, every decision, and life isn't that tough. If I work out, is life going to get better or worse, right? If I eat right, is life going to get better or worse, right?
Yeah, I think so many people focus on the pain, dude. right? Like our kids, right? They do. They focus on, I can't have a donut, or I can't have this candy, or I can't have this thing. It reminds me, Whittle always used to talk about, when a woman has a baby, we don't say, how did it feel? We say, let's see the baby. You know why? Because this incredible thing happens. And a lot of times we fail to see this incredible thing that can happen if we have new skill sets, or we make good diet decisions, or
like you said earlier, you're just putting odds in your favor, right?
Yeah.
It's continuously, the more you do the right things, the easier life will be, right? The more you do the wrong things, the tougher life will be. It's not that.
Yeah. Successful people make life look so easy. Well, that's just because they do good, a lot of good things, and they add up over time.
Yeah.
Just like, people who aren't successful make that look pretty easy too.
Sure.
It's like, well, making bad choices is the same as making good choices. It's just what choice did you make, and then how many times did you make those choices. If you screw up a few times, it's like being a parent. Someone told me one time, raise good kids, really only have to make 51% good choices. It doesn't have to be every time. It just has to be the majority, 51%. And I remember thinking, like, man, that sure makes being a parent seem a lot easier. You don't have to feel like every decision you make, every response is perfect.
Right.
Just have to be better more often than not, right?
Yeah, and it's okay to let your kids know that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, that they know that you're trying to be a good parent as well, and they're forgiving for your mistakes.
Yeah.
And if everybody has that environment that you're just trying to be better.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just trying to make a great life. So are you from Utah?
I'm from Southeast Idaho.
Okay.
And my wife is I'm from Teton Valley, Idaho.
Okay.
My wife is from Sugar City. Her parents grew up out here.
Okay.
They're Woodburys and MacArthurs.
Okay.
And so we were married in the St. George Temple, and then we went back to Idaho, but we moved back here in 2011 to raise our children in their heritage.
Awesome.
And it's been really cool.
Well, maybe the last few minutes here, this has been really good. Maybe just talk a little bit about, what you're planning on doing, running for city council, and just kind of wrap up with some of that stuff and some of the things that you see that are out there that you're going to focus on, and why people should vote for you.
Yeah, I'd like to hear. Yeah, in addition to that, why? Like, what was the reason you decided to run? Because I also think a lot of our listeners, they can also make an impact by getting involved in local, whether it's voting, whether it's running, whatever it may be. And so I'd like to hear why.
Pay attention to your local leaders, right? A little bit. I mean, you got to do some research, and you got to vote the right people in locally. That's how we're going to change.
And
this
talk
country,
about it. I was talking to my mother-in-law the other day about the local elections, and she got this ballot. I actually brought mine today. She got this ballot in the mail, and she sends me a picture of who she's going to vote for. And I said, you really going to vote for that person? And I said, have you gone online and read what they stand for? And she goes, well, I went to lunch with her. She's awesome. And I go, but do you know what she stands for? Do you know what she votes for? Do you know what she? And so I just sent her a few, quotes from this person. And she was like, oh my gosh. And so I think that's an important thing to realize, hey, people might vote for somebody because they like somebody, but most politicians are good at just getting people to like them. I personally think what's important is, what are the values? Because personally, we're not going to like everybody, but if they have the same values, we sure are going to like those results too, right? So whether it's in St. George, or whether it's, and someone listening in Georgia or New York or California, how do they keep electing this idiot for a governor in California? I don't know. It's almost like you have a hard time feeling bad for people who live in California. But at the same time, I know there's millions of people that would prefer he's not the governor anymore. But it's going to start with getting involved in local politics, right? Definitely. So what made you decide to start running?
So I've worked in over 20 major U.S. cities, some of them multiple times. And the cities that I had the most effectiveness in countering human trafficking had city councils and mayors that had human trafficking as a priority. Okay. And one of them, giving a shout out to my friend Tony Kennan, he's the mayor of Orange Beach, Alabama. He is so amazing and provides so much support. His chief of police there, the prosecutors, they're all striving to be very creative at how to stop human trafficking.
So you're telling me they don't have George Soros-backed prosecutors like in northern Utah? Is that what you're telling me? Sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, that is a real problem.
For all these people that think they're conservative in northern Utah and then put those people in office, huh? Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
So I've been helping these cities and other areas like that. And a couple of years ago, we had a family reunion, and my daughter and her cousin went for a walk in the evening. It was a nice night. Walked over to the splash pad. Oh, there's some kind of concert or something going on. It was a drag show. And they go in, and then they start cheering, "We are St. George." And they cheered too, "We are here." They cheered too, "We are queer." And my daughter was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
She no longer felt like she was in a safe place.
How old was she at this point?
14.
14. So she knew what they were doing at this point.
She didn't at first.
Yeah.
But she felt like it was an innocent place to go.
Yeah.
And I just started realizing, I've always been saying human trafficking, child exploitation has been in our backyard. It's now coming to our front yard.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the drag show are exploiting children, but like I said earlier, the predators use that as an inroad. Mm-hmm. And I do know that from lived experience. Mm-hmm. And so if you like drag shows, don't vote for me.
Right.
I don't like drag shows. I personally think it's weird. Yeah. I'm not going to try to stop you from doing them in your own privacy. I value our Constitution, our personal privacy rights and things, but I also know nobody's really cared about all the drag shows in the past until you start targeting our children.
Yeah.
So I'm a reluctant.
Well, I think one of the things you just said there was private, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to go do it in a private building or a private place, fine. But as soon as you start doing it at a park where
you can't take your child and go to the bar and be drinking.
Right.
There's restrictions.
Yeah.
There needs to be restrictions like that for children for sexually explicit things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And some of the people on that side might say something like, "Well, what about sexually explicit dance moves in high school for the drill team or cheerleaders or really, who are you trying to protect, predators or children?"
Yeah.
Let's have this real conversation, because predators are absolutely moving in that kind of a direction. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to policy, as I explained with my schooling, I don't like bureaucracy, but I do like exploring and navigating policy almost like a game, mm-hmm. like an art. I think that's really interesting. No. And so on the political side, I'm very conservative and fiscally conservative. And so that's how I will be in city council. But my priority is to focus on getting our ordinances in alignment to our values. People might say, no, the ordinances don't belong with values, or values don't belong with ordinances. No, it absolutely is. I don't care what city you go to, the ordinances reflect the values of that area.
Yeah, that's why states exist to begin with inside of the federal government, right?
Yeah.
You don't like it, move to another state.
That's right. And the values of this area are based on the original Dixie pioneers. Mm-hmm. And it was faith, patriotism, hard work, personal responsibility, and sacrifice. Yep. And we need to just go through our ordinances and make sure they align and that we're actually following them. Because that's what happened. Our ordinances got exploited.
Yep.
And they knew there were gaps that we were protecting one group over another or whatever, until when they stopped the ordinances, they didn't stop it. The event ordinances, they didn't stop it for everybody.
Right.
And that's why it wasn't that we lost to the drag show people in the lawsuit. It was, we lost because we weren't following our own ordinances.
Right.
That's what happened there. And so that's the kind of thing that I will be focusing on here is just, that'll be the top priority. But first of all, the first thing I really am excited to do, we talked about how I'm not military or law enforcement. I didn't come in that way. I've never taken an oath to the Constitution. I am really excited about doing that.
Yeah.
An official oath to that Constitution. That'll be the very first thing I do.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. I am somebody who loves statesmen. I love our founders. I believe the Constitution is an inspired document, possibly eternally.
Yeah.
Those principles and concepts in the Constitution are given by God. I believe that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And so I love it. That's where I'm coming from.
Awesome. Well, where can people go to learn more about you? Where's the best places to look you up?
VoteAros.com is my website.
Okay.
And it's all over social media as well.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on today. I learned a lot.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Right. And just great stuff. We've all got to work on being more solid men and help other men that aren't maybe there yet, help them get there.
That's right.
And we got a big mission ahead of us. So we'll keep on it.
Thanks for coming on today, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm looking forward to a new friendship.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Yeah.